Hello and welcome to another episode of the VR Download, a weekly show recorded live within the Upload Virtual Studios, where we bring you the latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. We've got an interesting show for you today. First off, we will have maybe one other person joining us later, but this show
Santa.
Yeah, it could be, or the Easter Bunny, or the Tooth Fairy. You never know.
I hope so.
PS5 announcement. Sony's PlayStation 5 event.
Event.
Right, finally happened. It was delayed for obvious reasons, and now it has happened today. We're going to talk about it. That's all we're going to talk about today. Yeah.
It's the big thing.
PS5 special.
PS5 special. Special
edition. I guess from our point of view, we were hoping for a bit more VR stuff, which there wasn't really much of at all.
There
were some hints at things. There was a little bit of things here, and there was some suggestions of potential VR stuff here and there, but most of it was non-VR stuff. But I still think it's exciting and obviously relevant because they've said that it will support PSVR, current generation, and obviously there will be a PSVR 2 at some point. So it is still very exciting. But where to start? I mean, 2 models.
Well,
as you can see.
I mean, it's just going back to your point about like if we were going to hear about PSVR support today. It's a very, very tricky question in the first place, right? Because obviously, as free, we all want to hear about it. Our readers want to hear about where they're going with the future of VR and, specifically their history as well, like what kind of backwards compatibility support is going to be available on the system. But this was, the first reveal of the console, and they have to speak to, the potential hundreds of millions of people that are going to buy the console before they dial in and speak to, the real hardcore enthusiasts that are going to invest in, another VR headset in the next couple of years. So you can obviously understand why this presentation, which was about an hour long, probably had something like 20, maybe 30 games, didn't have any direct mention of VR support. But as you said, Harry, like watching the show, there were a couple of games, and like you said, these are the consoles. There's a couple of hints within all of this stuff that us as VR enthusiasts can pick apart. And like you said, let's start with the consoles. As you can see here on the screen, I can walk over like Ian likes to do. I'm gonna walk into Xena. Excuse me, Xena. She's in real life, not in the. Anyway, we have full fat PSVR with a disc, and then
the light edition, the skim milk,
skimmed PSVR, PS5, sorry, without a disc. Now this is, first of all, this is quite interesting. We didn't find out how much memory the digital edition will have. We didn't find out what kind of price both of them will have. Personally,
that's true. They didn't mention price.
They didn't. And I think from a consumer perspective, if you look at the last generation of consoles and the difference between like digital store pricing and physical pricing, there was often a big enough gap in the two that I feel like even if you went for the more expensive disc version, I'm assuming it's going to be more expensive because that's what makes sense. Within a couple of game purchases, you probably make up the difference, maybe.
That's what I was just saying at the car before we went live, which was that, especially here, I don't know, I think it's in the US, I think it's better, but here in Australia, like they'll recommend a game will release with a recommended price of like $80, which will be the digital price, but then it's actually always, every shop will have it on physical for 70, even though it should be sold at like 80. So by that point, I was just saying to Carl, the two things that, because Carl, when I came into the studio, Carl was like, which one are you getting? And I was like, well, I was going to say the digital, but then one, as Carl pointed out, has the 4K, Blu-ray player, which I don't currently own one. They have a 4K TV, so
that's a
check. And two, if the games are cheaper physical, then as you said, you kind of would make up the price pretty quickly. And that's
let's look.
I don't know.
Let's look at the differences between the two, what we do know. We obviously know that there is a physical difference here, but the drive inside, how much does a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray drive actually cost? Is it $70,
there was
$80. I don't know.
wasn't there was a period where I think Blu-rays first came out, and I think it would have been the beginning of like PS4, Xbox One generation, where like one of the easiest ways there was certainly a point where one of the easiest ways to get a Blu-ray player was to buy a game console. Like not only was it one of the cheapest options, but it's kind of like if they weren't by themselves, they're not cheap. So if you're going to get something and it's already like a couple of $100, you may as well get the kind of lowest model. I think it was like the Xbox One S when that was announced was like a really cheap way to get a Blu-ray player kind of thing, because it was just it's not like they're cheap enough on their own.
Well, I mean, PS3 was the first console to support Blu-ray, right? And I think it might have been that you're talking about, because even though PS3 was like really expensive when it came out, Blu-ray players themselves were still like a good $300-400 more.
I remember because my dad got a Blu-ray player. He got like a new TV, and they like sold him with a Blu-ray player. And it was around that time, and I was like, that was like 200 and something bucks. I was like, a PlayStation is like, it's more, but like also like not that much more. Like,
you make up the difference, right?
Yeah, you're paying a lot for just the Blu-ray player. So yeah, I think that is something that a lot of people might get drawn into there purely because it's 2-in-1 kind of thing.
So if the digital one, the only difference is, let's say it's, I don't know, $100 less. That seems like a big difference if you really think about the specifics here. But will the digital edition have a larger hard drive? Will it compensate somehow? Maybe they're the same price, but they have two different features. I don't really know. It's all speculation.
I mean, if you think about it, you're not running games off the disc. So hypothetically, it's not like you would need more, less storage on disc one, because you're still installing the game from the disc and then updating it online. So really, the only difference is you're installing it. You still need the same, 1 terabyte or whatever the storage that it comes with. If games are X amount large, you still need that storage.
Here's the big thing, and this kind of ties back into the VR support somewhat. Backwards compatibility is going to be a big feature of this console, or it's going to be a big deciding point for a lot of people.
It's true
about when they get this console, how they get into it.
Yeah.
Is this disk drive going to support PS4 discs, or are they going to say it's backwards compatible but only for your digital library? Because that makes a huge difference.
I reckon they get a lot of flack if they said it. If they said it didn't support discs.
Yeah.
If they said it didn't support discs, that would be a lot of flack. Like backwards compatibility on discs, they would get reamed. And that's what they're handing it to Microsoft to be like, well, ours does. Which isn't that what Sony did, right? They had that video where they were like, this is how easy it is to share a game, and just like handed the game to between them. But yeah, I can't imagine. But that's true. Backwards compatibility and discs is a thing as well. So
yeah.
So the first thing I did when I got done watching oh look, we have Ian here. Ian, are you here? He's here with us in spirit.
He's
okay.
He's here
that's the important
spirit.
thing.
That's good. No, the first thing I saw when I went on Twitter was people were like, ooh, it's ugly. Or, ooh, does it only stand up? And
that was me.
Yeah, that was everyone's take.
I just,
it looks like I melted it.
It looks like it can go on its side.
It can. We've seen a picture.
There's an image.
There's a stand so it can go on its side.
And I think it does look a lot better on its side, to be fair, because I think, and David and Tatiana would very much disagree with me, I think that thing looks so ugly like that. I think maybe it looks cool now, but that to me, like, even if you think it's cool now, I think this lasts, 7 years? In 2 years' time, you can be like, that thing looks so 2020, like they were just trying really hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to age terribly.
This kind of feeds back into a wider thing that I've been thinking about both console launches this year, which is that Sony and Microsoft, it kind of feels like they're launching these consoles because of the demands of the market more than the reality of actually bringing them to market, if that makes sense. There's been a lot of rumors that this thing's going to be very, very expensive because of difficulties Sony's been having with like securing parts for the PS4 essentially, the PS5 essentially.
Yeah.
And and it's the same thing for the Xbox Series X in the sense that there's meant to be I should say there's a very possible rumor that there's going to be an Xbox Series S as well, like a cheaper version of it, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like in this holiday time frame, they're both kind of just firing their starting guns now with potentially really, really big prices, bigger than we've seen for two consoles launching at the same time for a new generation. And we might have sort of like a kind of soft launch year where they're kind of testing the waters, getting some of their software out there. And we might even see like sleeker boxes with lower prices, maybe not a year in, but like sooner than we're used to in a console generation. Because both consoles are big, meaty things, right?
And if you just look at the way consoles have gone, you know, we're still in the same generation now of PS4, Xbox One, but in the last, 3 years of a 7-year cycle, I want to say? I don't know how long it's been, but there's been so many more variations of both of those consoles that I can't see this console and others getting, you know, way more iterations. Also, they do sell, there is a PS4 bundle that like comes with PSVR and everything, right? That is a thing?
No,
Can you buy it all
I
think so. Really?
There may have been at one point.
They've started to bundle up the PSVR with like the camera and everything like that, but the two together with a console isn't a thing right now. You can't. I don't think
because
I don't remember now.
I was just say I can see, you know, PSVR 2. You could make a digital edition one with the PSVR headset bundled in. I don't know if you chuck in move controllers or not, but you know what I mean? You just could make this kind of little VR bundle where it doesn't have the disc drive, so it's slightly cheaper. You're kind of offsetting the cost there a bit. I can see them doing that, you know, little VR box that also runs
that'd
PlayStation
be great,
games.
right? And so to that point, we should talk about like the biggest hardware reveal for this presentation on the VR side, which is there was an HD camera shown,
HD camera. I mean, that was pretty much all they said.
That speaks. I mean, mostly that speaks to the promised backwards compatibility support. I mean, you have to assume that if there's a new camera coming, that's what's going to be what we use to play original PSVR. And we've also been talking about the possibility of maybe they use that for PSVR 2. We all kind of hope not, right? Because that might come with the same kind of tracking restrictions we've all suffered with for the past 4 years. And we're really kind of hoping that those get pushed aside with a potential successor. But, I mean, so do you think they bundle the new camera with the new console, or do you reckon that's maybe like $100 peripheral
I feel like
you
that's
buy on the
separate.
side?
I just wrote this in the article that probably has just been published now. I just wrote that, you know, traditionally the camera, and they also showed it alongside the other accessories like the media remote and the headset. That stuff doesn't usually come in the box. And you know, I can only see that driving the price up, and we're already talking about something that's potentially quite expensive. So I think for sure it's definitely a separate purchase. Although I do find it, isn't it, to me, and there's something else I noted in the article, you know, they've said it is compatible with current PSVR hardware. To me, that doesn't mean having to go out and buy a new camera. Like, you say it's compatible, surely I can plug in the camera I bought for my PSVR. It's part of the hardware, is it not? Like, I think that's interesting. That'll be an interesting point.
That's all to do with proprietary, I hate that word, ports, right? The camera for the PS4 has its own little port in the back of the console. And that's if it's not the same thing for PS5, it's that could potentially be a USB-C by now, right? Or just a standard USB. That's a big ask.
What I'm saying is you'd hope it would be the same port and you could plug it. Because to me, when they say compatible with current hardware, I do think, well, I shouldn't have to buy anything then, besides the console.
Yeah.
Like if you bought the console, it didn't come with the camera and you have to go buy a camera to make it work, that's suddenly to me, that's kind of
suddenly it's PS4.
Yeah.
Because that's
exactly
what you had to do. You had to buy each piece
you had to go buy the exactly, and it's not quite compatibility. So I would like to imagine that you don't need that new camera, which, if you don't need it, it would also suggest that camera does in fact play a role in whatever is next. Otherwise, why does it kind of exist at this stage? You know, if you don't need it.
Well, I mean, it is heavily used in the kind of. It is heavily used in the streaming side of PS4 as well, right? People use it to kind of have a little thumbnail window for them while they're playing games, and they have to keep that on.
Think of that.
I know.
Do people really use that?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when it launched, people love that.
Wouldn't people just get a capture card and then use OBS?
Well, that's way more expensive and complex. I mean, I don't know how to do that stuff.
I wouldn't.
We're not talking about streamers, you know, like Twitchers and stuff like that. We're talking about just your average, you know, little kid
Yeah.
rando in the basement of his parents' house, you know.
I guess it's something for
Or
a
her.
GameStop employee
Are
to
we?
upsell to the parent as well. Like,
Yeah.
Christmas time, they don't know what they're getting. It's like, oh, I get the PS5 and you can get the camera too.
Well, if you're
It's one
going
of
to
those
come
kind
out
of
with a
things.
new piece of hardware, you have to have accessories for people to buy.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
to be able
it's-
to for shop employees to coax parents into
Well,
buying.
okay, those headphones,
Right.
they match. They go along with it. They're wireless.
All shiny
Uh,
white.
how many people who the target demographic for that product already have a headset that they love? Like, I
Yeah.
think out of all the things that they showed, those headphones would be the ones, on the clearance rack at a
No
GameStop
one-
first. You don't
Yeah.
think?
I mean, I've
Yeah.
never gone and wanted to buy a Microsoft or Sony branded headset, like as in headphone headset ever. Because as you said, I already have plenty of those that I prefer. Yeah.
Especially with what we're talking about right now, about like this for the first year, this maybe being an enthusiast device. You're absolutely right, Carl. Like, enthusiasts already have whatever they're going to play their
Yep.
games with this thing, right? I mean, the interesting thing is they talk about 3D audio enabled by,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, the power of the PS5, which is something they engineered with the original PSVR. So that's quite interesting. Oh, hello, Ian.
I
Give me a
think
little
I'm here
wave.
now.
Hey,
I was
yeah,
acting
I mean,
weird on my
I can hear you.
quest.
Welcome.
Someone's microphone, I don't know if it's the comments are mentioning it, but someone's microphone was catching a lot of breathing.
I think
Oh,
it
that's
might
me,
be,
apparently.
Might be Jamie. Yeah, I think.
I'm standing up, which has meant more breathing. It's been a long night, but I'm trying to keep it in. I'm trying to hold my breath between intellectual comments. Probably,
You don't need to
probably
breathe
not
too
a good
often,
idea.
right? I mean, it's not that important.
Anyway, so while Jamie holds his breath to talk for a long time, he used to hold it for a long time. What we're saying, oh yeah, the 3D audio and the headphones. You know what, Jamie? You actually should talk about this because it was your point. You were saying about 3D audio. Go on.
Oh. Well, I mean, I was kind of finishing at the idea that they were just, they said specifically that was something they engineered with the invention of PSVR, and now they're bringing it to more games, just more standard flat games. And
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how, like, I guess with audio in VR games, it's kind of like so expected that I kind of don't notice it, which is obviously what good audio design in a VR game should do.
Yeah, I feel like
Is
I noticed
it
bad
when I'm playing a
VR
flat
audio.
game?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm playing a flat game, am I now going to notice it? Is that going to make it that much more obvious? I
Yeah.
think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I also now someone will have to come in with more expertise because I've very rarely used PSVR, even though I've just got one recently. If you put a big pair of headphones on, like that headset that they showed in the thing, does it actually fit with the design? Because it doesn't.
Not perfectly, but it does.
Like it wouldn't. It does,
I
'cause
have
do wonder
one
if they would.
pair that does pretty well, but they're huge on my
Yeah.
head, so it
I
gives
do
enough
wonder
room.
if that headset, a bit like how the camera, we're thinking the camera could be used down the line for the new PSVR. I wonder if the headset, because now PSVR comes with those little earbuds, and I hate that style of earbud. But I wonder if the headset could be something that's like, they could push it as a 3D audio, get the good headset, get the good headphones with the headset kind of thing.
It definitely doesn't seem like they're going to get rid of the the Halo ring design, right? Like that seems to be like one of the real winners of the PSVR design that people are now adopting themselves. Like, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon.
No. Yeah. For sure. And what else? What else did we? We also had the kind of weird Astrobot trailer, which was not quite.
Let's get to the games in that point, and let's start with Astrobot. Like you said, that was the strangest, most relevant thing on the software front for all of us, right? Because obviously Astrobot is a very, very popular PSVR game, one of the best PSVR games. I think still at the top of our list. And now he's coming back seemingly without VR. Carl, you want to say something?
I do. I knew that whatever was coming up, when I was watching the video, the little blue screen came up and it said consult the guidelines or the manual for health and safety and all that stuff. I went, here is a VR title. Here it comes. They're not going to say it, but it's a VR title because that's what that screen means. And I was so excited when I saw Ashbot because I have yet to meet a person, well, face to face. I'm sure if you looked online, you could find them. I have yet to find a person who didn't like playing that game.
Oh, for sure. And
But
I don't.
but they didn't say it, right? I mean, that's kind of
No,
Well,
they didn't. It's
the
very
No,
strange.
fearful thing that
but
puts
also-
confusion in our heads.
Yeah, Kyle, it just confused me because I completely forgotten about that health and safety thing. And now
Yep.
that's popped up. What was that there? Why was that there? What was that there for?
So
Is
my take, just before anyone else says, my take, I've seen other people say what Carl's been saying, and I didn't register it as that. I thought it was literally just the first thing you see when you boot up PS5.
That's what
and
I
it was
thought.
like
I
that.
thought it was going to be like a UI reveal type thing.
But what Carl's saying makes complete sense, but then it doesn't make complete sense in the context of then showing Astrobot without talking about PSVR. And
Yeah.
based on the gameplay and the way the camera moved, it clearly wasn't being played with a PSVR headset, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought, at least. I
Unless
thought
it
I saw
has-
it being
unless
moved
it
in very
has
manual
both
ways.
support. What if it's both VR and non-VR?
That's what I was
Like
thinking
you can
too.
play it either way.
That was my conclusion as well.
That
But
seems
then
like a
also, why
distinct
wouldn't they
possibility.
announce that?
Well, because they haven't announced the PSVR 2 yet. And so what I'm seeing, and I'll be really honest, I'm not going to say specifically which ones, but some of the games that they showed today are ripe for the picking for PSVR 2. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
just extremely obvious. But none of the games, I was even reading the little fine print at the bottom, and
Yep.
none of them had any mention. It was the letters V and R were nowhere in that stream at all.
Yep, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I keep trying to wrap my brain around why they would do that. Why is this their strategy of just kind of taking their time? And I don't have a good answer for it. I just
Well,
I,
I think
I
Oh, there's
most
plenty
people-
of good answers.
Yeah, I feel like
you've
most
gotta-
people
you've gotta
don't
sell
care
this-
about PSVR.
sorry.
To be honest, no. That's,
Yeah,
you
you've
go.
got to sell this to the mainstream this
Right.
holiday season. And if you spend any minutes in the first 60 when you're going for that huge, I mean, 2 million people were watching this on YouTube, 2.5 on
Wow.
just Sony's US account. I was watching
Yep.
that one, 2.5 million people. That's half of the amount of people already that bought PSVR, right? You can't market the separate, 400 or 200 or whatever, however many dollar headset right now when you also haven't actually revealed the price of this thing yet, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You have to keep the messaging clean and concise, so that's why it wasn't in there.
When you watch previous streams that show a mixture of both non-VR and VR games, the comments are constantly, "Oh, why are they showing this VR
Yeah.
garbage? Nobody cares
Yeah.
about this."
Yeah.
It's the vocal majority who's watching the stream. This stream
Yep.
was not intended for us. This stream
And I-
was meant
well,
to tease us in the VR
so
community.
when you
Well, so as much as Astrobot is a popular game, I can't help but look at Gran Turismo and think
Oh,
Yep.
of just that the PSVR version of Gran Turismo Sport is
Yep.
pretty limited, right? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is
can only-
amazing.
You can't
it's
play against
immersive.
other racers, right? I mean, that's missing.
It's 1v1 AI and then time trials, which is in any car, in any map in the game, and it plays amazingly. But yeah, options wise, incredibly limited.
is that like a technical limitations thing, or is that
Yeah.
just we didn't want to do a full?
It's totally the technical limitations. In fact,
Yeah.
the one of the most prominent quotes in the life cycle of PSVR for me was that the CEO of Gran Turismo developer Polyphony Digital said like a year or two ago, the thing that's going to be the massive bump up next generation for Gran Turismo isn't what you see on the flat screen. It is the VR support, because that's what stands to gain the most in a generational jump,
Yeah.
right? So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically, semi-confirming right there and there that there's going to be a VR Gran Turismo. Whether it's Gran Turismo 7, I don't know. But
It's interesting
that-
because
yeah,
yeah. Well, now that we've talked through it, I feel like, let's say, as some things suggested, PSVR 2 is not coming. Let's say they don't even it doesn't release for like a year after, even or perhaps even more after the PS5. In that case, I can see them pushing this Astrobot game as available on PS5. Here it is, and you can also play it with your current PSVR hardware if you plug that into the PS5.
Yep.
And then when PSVR 2 comes out, it either gets some kind of upgrade or new content or something, and then
Yep.
you also have titles like Gran Turismo that launch PSVR 2. I feel like the Astrobot thing, now that we've talked through it, I feel like that could be a very big kind of bridging the the distance between PS5 and PSVR 2 releases.
Yep.
To me, at least,
Yeah,
that
and
seems most likely.
I think that was like I tweeted out earlier today that I was actually cautiously optimistic we might hear some PSVR news, and that would be on the front of PSVR works on this thing day one. Here's this really, really cool trailer for Resident Evil 8, which we'll get to in a bit. But hey, it also works in PSVR. And then also, 2 years from now, when you get your PSVR, you can basically experience the entire thing again in the new and improved headset, right?
Yeah.
And I was cautiously optimistic we might get some messaging along those lines today. I absolutely understand why we didn't. I mean, to Ian's point, Gran Turismo feels like a real missed opportunity not to just throw that in there somewhere at the end of the messaging. Oh, by the way, it's also on PSVR, right? Like that would have been such a big hit.
But I feel like that would introduce more questions than answers.
They didn't throw a date on there for Gran Turismo, did they? Did they say?
No, nothing had a date yet because we don't know when the console's out yet. So that nothing. I mean,
I meant
I don't think
a window like 2020, 2021, anything.
I can't remember what it.
Holiday. I love how holiday is a date now.
Well, it's funny because it's also to me. I think it's funny because I'm not used to the American. Because for me, holiday. When you say holiday, like period,
Vacation.
I can just think of Christmas. Whereas for you guys have like Thanksgiving and there's a whole holiday period.
September onwards.
Yeah, it's like that's the holiday, which is like a quarter basically. It's like
there's Arbor Day. Is it coming on Arbor Day? I don't know.
What's Arbor Day?
What's up?
Arbor Day. You know, when you celebrate arbors.
Do you cook an arbor?
I mean, we don't have
on
quite sophisticated public holidays. We just have like public holidays before the football grand final, just called the grand final public holiday. Just the Friday before. That's like we don't have anything like substantial. It's just all jokes.
Football? You mean soccer?
No, I mean actual like rugby, like not even rugby, like AFL, like Australian football.
AFL.
It's like it's a whole different.
Speaking of sports, how many people watch the NBA 2K21 and just
loved that
marveled at the sweat?
Look at that.
I didn't actually see that one.
Oh man, it looked.
That was the only thing you could see in the trailer was the sweat.
I could smell it. I could feel it. I could taste it.
It looked amazing. I didn't even play NBA games, and I was like, I would play that game because it just looked so amazing.
Like, I think the makers of that game should just come out with a game where you just sit there and watch somebody sweat. That would sell.
Oh yeah. Maybe you control the sweat, like with the analog sticks, just kind of.
Ooh, yeah.
You've got to get the sweat to drip in the right bucket.
Someone should just make it in dreams, realistically. Just make it someone's sweating in dreams. Actually, come to think of it, there were a couple of times where I did think, I wonder if we'll get something on Dreams VR support. Maybe they could sneak that in there as a little kind of VR thing, but there was nothing on that. And I do wonder when that's coming, because they keep saying very soon.
Well, the thing I kind of get...
Yeah.
The thing about the Gran Turismo is, like, I want a wheel, right? Like, that game needs to be played with a wheel, and... We talked about the input situation on the first generation of PSVR kind of causing problems because they were co-opting this older generation Move controller for VR, and I don't know. There's certain games like No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, and Gran Turismo, or like a Forza game in the case of an Xbox, that are that's the only game a certain segment of the people who buy the system are going to play. Like, they will just go into that for hundreds and hundreds of hours. And for those things, having a great controller system for it is really, really important. And I want to play Gran Turismo, a full Gran Turismo, with as many players as are supported by the flat version game in the VR version, so I can have that increased experience. And I want that for like a space simulator and those types of things, and I just don't know what input looks like over the full span of this console.
When it comes to a game like Gran Turismo, like, I think you can pretty safely bet that there's going to be support for third-party racing wheels and whatnot. Like, I mean, like Ace Combat on PSVR supports third-party flight sticks and whatnot, so I don't think you have to worry about that. I mean, it's interesting to look at the DualShock controller, and obviously we've all talked about this before. And Sony talks about advanced haptics there. It talks about trigger resistance. And you have to wonder how those features are going to feed into whatever motion controllers they're preparing for the next PSVR, and also then the patents we've been seeing, which and actually research papers, full-on research papers with very detailed videos that are showing, kind of Knuckles-like tracking, Valve Index controller like tracking. Sorry, and it does. From that front, it does seem like they're really stepping up this generation again because they have so much ground to gain by just improving on a 10-year-old controller.
Just to jump to one comment that came through, the Sacred Grove pointed out, they said they don't show the safe menu screen if it's not VR in relation to the Astro bot, the screen they showed at the beginning.
But isn't there like a health and safety thing when you turn on the PS4? I swear they say something as soon as you turn it on.
There's like a seizure warning in a lot of things.
Yeah, there you
because
go.
of bright lights.
Yeah.
But it's still very odd because it showed that warning and then the PS5 PlayStation logo as if you were starting up the console. So yeah, I've got no idea what that means. Hopefully it's VR, but
let me throw one wrench in there into the input question of just I kept looking at the guy's hands on the wheel of that Gran Turismo controller of the wheel in Gran Turismo and thinking we've got hand tracking now on Quest, and by early 2021 we're hoping for a next generation Quest that even does better hand tracking, or sometime in 2021, maybe even this year. We don't know how aggressive Facebook's going to actually be able to pull that off with all the situations going on with COVID-19. But if you're talking 2 years down the road and Quest is that much more a robust system with hand tracking, do you need hand tracking on a future PSVR? Do we need... Because I want to see the hands go on the wheel really realistically, even if you're using a third-party wheel.
I can picture a capacitive wheel and... Well, I mean, you shift up here. So I can imagine, you shift with the little buttons on the back of the steering wheel, but I can imagine a steering wheel where you're driving and then you let go, like a real physical wheel, and it recognizes that you let go, and then it takes your hand away. That way
could
you
be
don't
really
have
cool.
Because how else are you going to track your hands? At all.
I just feel like
some combo of using inside-out hand tracking plus what you're talking about would be a really compelling solution. It's just, I really, if they don't plan this out, is I guess what I'm saying, then we're kind of left way behind what competitors
I don't know.
are doing.
I think it goes back to that same point about the average. You think about how many PSVR units have sold, and it's even if PSVR lags behind, which clearly technology-wise now it is. I still know, I've had people message me who are friends whose, little cousins and stuff have got a PSVR for Christmas just because it was a thing their parents could get them, it was an easy VR thing. And I think even if it's lagging behind, it doesn't mean it's not going to kind of sell like hotcakes. I think the average person that buys a PSVR doesn't even know what a Quest is, maybe.
So I'll go one further. I'll say until you figure out hand tracking and locomotion in VR at the same time, hand tracking doesn't matter to PSVR. Because you cannot play Skyrim with hand tracking. You look at what's on Quest right now. Half the reason it's on Quest is because Oculus for Business is going to be such a huge deal for them, and that's such an intuitive way of getting a whole different kind of customer base into the headset, right? I really don't see, especially when they're pouring what seems to be so many resources into whatever controllers they're cooking up. I really don't see hand tracking being a big focus for, a core gamer base in the next, maybe even the next 5 to 10 years, right? If you're talking about go for it.
I was just gonna say, and adding a steering wheel to something like Gran Turismo, not only is that if I'm thinking of playing that game, I kind of do want to actually be holding something. I mean, it would be good to be able to hold a physical thing and then kind of take my hands off and have my hands still tracked when they're not on the wheel. But one, I would think I want to hold something. Two, you're going to have people who want to physically hold a wheel, and then you can kind of sell them on the VR. You've already got a PS5, grab the wheel, and the wheel's another thing for them to sell. At the end of the day, hands, you're not selling anything when you're saying we support hands, as kind of lame as that sounds, as a business. They're like, well, we can just use their hands. Or we can make a wheel and sell it as a peripheral, and the people who like racing cars will love that. It's kind of I feel like from them, it's almost like a kind of easy accessory to market when you combine them with VR and stuff.
I think there has to be more than one VR racing game to justify a special steering wheel.
But also, I feel
I
like
don't
people who
know.
love racing games are really into racing games. Like,
Also,
Sure.
I feel like,
don't forget if Gran Turismo launches at the start of the PS5 generation, they could potentially be updating that game for the next 7 to 8 years. You know.
yeah.
Like,
Also,
I mean,
comes out
Gran
before
Turismo
PSVR
Sport
2.
still gets updates. Yeah.
Like, imagine if it came out too, like at launch, and then like a year, 2 years later, PSVR 2 comes out. It gets PSVR 2 support. Then not only if you like, people have already got a game that will then work with. You know, if it's the same copy, they just have to buy the headset. They've already got a game. It's interesting too because I feel like the way they're setting this up could be like, just buy the headset, and all of these games have a VR mode. You know, that you might already have. You know, if you've already got Astrobot, if you've already got Gran Turismo, it might be like, well, just buy the headset, and you've got 5 games already.
Right,
that's a really good strategy. That's an amazing strategy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the thing. I think that's going to be what happens is that they're going to say, oh, by the way, now that the PSVR 2 is out, all these games are now in your VR library because they all have
the PSVR games from last gen work. Yeah,
right.
And they
it feels like that could be a really.
They couldn't do that last time, right? Like they had tons of amazing shooters that would have been great in VR, but the power of the PS4 just wasn't there to support them on PSVR. This time they can do that. That's one of the things that's really being driven home here. That is that Gran Turismo 7 could work. Resident Evil 8, presumably, hopefully, maybe. And I know Heaney's swearing at me somewhere because we were arguing about this earlier. Hopefully Resident Evil 8 could/should work because, you know, they had that running in an engine on PS4 last time and they're sticking with the same engine, it looks like, based on the similarity of the graphics. And so, yeah, you're right. Like, okay, maybe we're even talking about, PSVR doesn't work with this thing on day one, but like, give it 2 years and then you've got 2 years worth of games that do suddenly work on it. That could be a huge selling point. Huge selling point.
Yeah. And every PSVR 2 comes with a copy of Half-Life Alyx. Imagine that.
Am I right? Like,
imagine like
huge.
Like, because I do feel like the Alyx thing is fairly likely, and I just feel like that'd be such an easy sell if you go all these games you got will have a VR mode and you get a copy of Half-Life Alyx, or you can just buy Half-Life Alyx and play it on there.
Boy,
like
that
Alyx
thing is such a hard thing to wrap my brain around because there's so much of that investment from Valve continues to be in the modding and the Steam VR, the strengthening of the Steam VR ecosystem or the Steam ecosystem, and I don't see how bringing Alyx over to PlayStation 5 really helps there.
Because I don't think the problem is it doesn't take away from them. Like, you're not taking away index owners from, like, if someone who buys PSVR 2 is not, I don't think it's the same audience as someone who's going to buy an index.
Yeah.
But you are still going to get sales on the PSVR 2.
And Valve has been a very pro-console audience in the past. It's just they stopped making console games. Essentially. Stopped making games, but also stopped making console games when they got into Dota and, to a lesser extent, Artifact and whatnot. And I mean, I agree with you, Harry. Like that, I don't really see what they stand to lose, especially when, like, if maybe Sony did open up to the idea of mods, which they have done in the past. PS3, the PS3 version of Unreal Tournament 3, to go way back, supported mods, and then actually the Portal 2 version was on PS3 was one of the first console games to have crossplay with the PC version. Yeah. So I definitely think there's scope to have it there. And also, they did answer a question, like when Alyx was revealed. I think Jeff Keighley asked them, "Is it coming to PSVR?" And they said, "Well, we know people on PSVR want to play it, but nothing to say today," which is the PR speak for when we can actually fit it on there. Yeah, exactly, right. And that's I guess that's one of the other things I was kind of hoping to see today was maybe Alyx, maybe Boneworks, but I can understand why not. There is, going back to something we were talking about earlier, I think one of the key questions that I got out of this was, what is Astrobot without VR? Why would you... That to me, that seems like you are fundamentally misunderstanding. Well, exactly, right? You're kind of completely losing the edge that franchise had. And quite ironically, because they also showed the new Sackboy game which is the character from Little Big Planet, right? And they just revealed a new 3D platform Sackboy game, and it's like, but without user-generated content, why is this a Sackboy game? And then we saw Astrobot, and it was like, but without VR, why is this an Astrobot game, I don't understand. Like, why wasn't it knack-free for all the memes that are coming out about that?
We know that Sony is not abandoning VR. So I suspect that our original concept is correct, that these games have VR support built in. I would imagine that Sony went to the developers and said, if you're making a game for our next generation, keep this in mind. And I mean, I would imagine that would be...
Harry's excited about something.
What, Harry?
We just had a comment to point out something very important that I didn't even catch. So I think it was something robot, his name's been moved up now, I can't see, pointed out, he said the camera has 2 lenses, which I didn't even kind of see or realize, but it does. I just checked on my phone, I looked at the image, it's got like one on either end of it instead of one in the middle, and he was like, do you think it's used for streaming? That seems like it would be more for something to do with VR, which is interesting because you wouldn't need 2 lenses for like, I don't know what you'd need 2 lenses for.
2 cameras is typically used for like better depth recognition, as I understand it.
There's 2 cameras on the original PS4 camera.
Is there?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm turning around and lifting my head up.
Yeah, I was wondering what you were doing.
2 cameras.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. It just looked different, so I thought that was something important, but never mind then. But hey, who knows? There's 2 lenses. There you go.
But so getting back to the thing about like maybe Astrobot supports TVs and VR, that's all well and good, but so much of what was great about Astrobot was it was intrinsic to VR only design. So are you going to have this weird halfway house in this one where it's actually not as cool to play it in VR because you can play on TV as well? Just seems like a weird compromise to me.
Dave Station VR said, are you guys of the mindset that Astro's Playroom won't support VR? I think I would guess we're all the mindset that it would, but perhaps not.
I think
initially. I don't know.
Why not both?
I think both.
I would love for both, but I personally think this might be a halfway house between a proper Astrobot 2, which is
it might be
VR only.
Like a Spider-Man Miles Astro of the Astrobot universe, somewhere between.
Well, exactly. That's actually a really, really good analogy. And you know, Sony Japan has to do something for the next 2 or 3 years before PSVR 2 is out, right? So why not get a head start making a game on PS5, making an Astrobot game on PS5, getting familiar with that hardware, and then integrating the VR side of it? Could be really, really smart use of time.
If you really think about it, the Astrobot game uses a third-person camera, and that's an easier type of camera to implement for VR because you don't have to have any personalization. You're just a camera. You're just a head. It's not like you're reaching out and you know, touching stuff when you're playing Astrobot.
That's true, but at the same time, you are using your head to like headbutt stuff in the environment in that game. The controller also, you know, you can use to reach into the world in many different ways, and I just feel like you'd lose some of that for sure. Like you're right, Carl. You could do it for sure. It's just there are some native elements that were so important to that original game. Go on, Harry.
Yeah.
If we're like just thinking about this now, like Astrobot is a VR, like it's never been anything before the VR game, right? That was it was a new IP.
Yeah, not
right?
really. Well, so the little robot things were in a PS4 launch game called Playroom. Then at PSVR there was Playroom VR.
Okay.
And then, but Astrobot wasn't a part of the Playroom. It was just the character
like
design.
Franchise. Yeah, but it's like it also makes me wonder too if this is like a game that's going to launch like with non-VR mode first or non-VR mode in general. Who is going to go and buy an Astrobot game that's not for VR?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, exactly right. It's like
people don't have an attachment to it.
They're in search of their Mario with both Astrobot and Sackboy, and they've removed the core tenets of both of those franchises to try and find it. And I understand why, because you know Ian watched the showcase with his kids, and I'm sure they had some sort of reaction to Astro and Sackboy, right? Like,
it was funny. My kid actually got mad at me that I've kept the PSVR packed up for so long because she loves the cat and mouse in the Playroom VR, where you become the cat in VR and you've got to try to capture the mice.
That too, yeah.
And as soon as she saw that on screen, she's like, "Why haven't we played the PlayStation VR in a long time?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I just don't like."
When you say that,
then you're like, "You're not allowed to play that."
It makes me think that the PSVR is like the Wii of VR. Like it's like, well, I get out play the cat and mouse game on the PSVR. To me, it just reminds me of like getting out. Like, why haven't we played Wii golf in a while?
Wii
like,
boxing,
it just,
yeah.
It's like it's like that game. It's like I remember the days we used to play Wii boxing, Wii golf. It just sounds like I don't know. It reminds me of like my family. We like packed away the Wii and never used it again.
But if any game in that showcase was the one we want for VR, it was Resident Evil 8, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, it looked incredible. And the idea of just revisiting it finally after 2 and 3 skipped over VR support, I think would send such a strong statement about their intent for VR this generation to launch with Resident Evil 8 support and Gran Turismo support and everything like that.
Bug snacks. That should be...
No.
No?
My kid's going to be singing that for weeks, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like fun.
The cartoon dinosaur dating game, I really just do not want that in VR.
Don't get me started on that one.
That was
the volcano one or whatever.
The volcano,
Last Days of Volcano.
Yeah, goodbye Volcano
High.
I was interested in the style. That was an interesting style.
Kyle.
What?
No one's using the F word yet, but
we
can't really use the F word when it's dinosaurs.
That's I don't know about that one, Carl. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not sure.
Hey, I guess I'm a little bit more open-minded. I don't know.
All right, that's what we're okay. All right, cool. Anyway,
so, I guess that kind of wraps up the kind of VR side of the presentation, which was just a bunch of cool games that really do look like they would work very, very well in VR, promising for the future. Do we hear any more about VR this year from Sony? I mean, right now they're doing great on the PSVR front. We've got Vader Immortal coming out. We've got Iron Man VR in less than a month. It's actually been a really good swan song year for PSVR, which I wasn't expecting.
So let me ask just this: how do you change the lenses out on a PSVR? And is that an easy process? Is it possible to do?
No.
What do you want to do? Do you want to get rid of?
No, I saw a photo out there that reminded me of just how scuffed up those lenses get. And if you're talking about a headset that's still in use after 4 years, those are pretty cloudy lenses after several years of use. I think they really need to make it a little bit easier for people to go back to that original experience with their eyes. Because like I've said this before in some of my articles, but like a VR headset, it almost seems like the lenses are never as clear as the first day you buy them. The first day you put them, you can wipe them down. We've got articles out there where Oculus actually told us that you can put a little dab of water, of perfectly clean water, on the microfiber cloth and wipe it that way, in order to get some of the scuff marks over there. But like that's one of the problems with PSVR, at least one of the reasons I don't go back to it, is those lenses are a little too cloudy for me to use. And I think there's millions and millions of people out there that it gets ugly after a while with those lenses. I wish they would
that's a good point.
Create a way to upgrade those.
Again, I don't think the average person is going to go and try and replace the lenses. Like I feel like the average person is going to wait for a PSVR 2 and grab that. There's been some comments too. Someone said before, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, I hope that it supports PSVR because I don't want to be waiting, stuck on a PS4 waiting for it to. Which I would think the idea is that it would support PSVR somewhat immediately, if not at launch. But at the same time, if it didn't, that'd be because they have said it will support PSVR, but they haven't said when, right? Like, they haven't said
they haven't
launch.
said day one and every game that you bought on PS4 is going to work.
What is Dave Station talking about?
Dave is annoyed at me. Dave is annoyed because I said that the PSVR reminds me of like the Wii of VR because he said it has good exclusives. Dave, I know it's a really good headset. It has good exclusives. I understand. I was more just saying the kind of idea of having a console in the house and like you pack it away and the kids get annoyed. But yes, it is a very good.
Knew you were going to catch some heat for that one.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, okay, that's a flex.
Hot take, Harry.
Well, you know what? If it helps any, Dave Station, we completely disagree with Harry. We're gonna have to reprimand.
So, I had a conversation with Jesse Shell over at Shell Games earlier this week, and he had a lot of interesting insight into sort of the place of VR in the market. And I threw all my hard questions at him since he's got like a 25+ plus year history working on VR, and he worked on Disney Quest back in the day, and he's a professor, teacher, and then in addition to that, got I Expect You to Die and Until You Fall coming out of that studio, along with a whole lot of flat screen games. And I want to get that interview out there and talk about, but he had some projections out there of thinking that VR could be not like a majority of the game market, but a significant chunk of the VR market in, say, 5 years' time. And the thing, though, that I kept going back, sort of trying to push him on and ask him questions and poke him to try to get to the core of this, because, like, he thought sort of PC is becoming a smaller part of the VR market. That, I guess clearly the point was that Quest seems to be the form factor, right? An all-in-one system that does everything you need it. You put on the headset and you're ready to go. You grab the controllers, you're ready to go. And I keep trying to think about long-term how PSVR really matches that, because there's a lot of people talking about Vita and how much they loved Vita back in the day, and that was their favorite system in some cases, and I just don't know.
Are you suggesting that the PSVR is the Vita of VR?
No, I'm saying that in order for PSVR 2 to have a success, it needs to take some notes from the standalone market. And I don't know how PlayStation gets there, how Sony gets there without partnerships or something.
I think there's some interesting things to pick apart going back to the Wii comparison in many ways. Here we go. But I'm going to try and not dig myself a hole here. I'm not calling PSVR a Wii, okay? I'm not insane.
Watch out for my editorial coming soon.
Actually, what I kind of mean, right, is that the Wii was this kind of underpowered but strangely intuitive, strangely fun console that caught on with a whole new type of audience that gaming had never really resonated with before. And that is what Quest is doing, to Ian's point, right? But at the same time, you do have the hardcore and more enthusiast gaming market still thriving, and that is PSVR 2's MO. The PSVR 2's MO for the next 5 years is the fact that you can get Resident Evil 8 on it, hopefully, sorry Heaney, and Gran Turismo 7, and they don't look like, I mean, me and you did you try the Frozen thing today?
Not yet, I haven't gotten into it yet. It's been a busy day.
Yeah. A Frozen short VR story launched on Quest today, and it's like, there's a lot of technical hitches and ugly graphics in it, and
when you say Frozen, do you mean like Disney Frozen?
Yeah, Myth.
Yeah. My kids found out about that this morning. My kids got that, and I'm like,
okay.
I'm trying to get some work accomplished, and they've got the Quest. I'm like, we want to do the Frozen thing, and I'm like grabbing it, and they're pulling it back, and I'm like, let it go.
Oh man, come on, give me my button. Come on.
Oh God's sake.
I need the button to dump him into the fire. Come on.
Go on.
Well, so to that point, and actually, I think Jason Rubin was talking about this in some interviews around Quest's anniversary recently, about how you have to define what AAA is going to mean to VR, and for Quest, for some time, that is not going to mean lovely graphics and, really powerful, technically demanding scenes. And you are still going to get that on PSVR for some time to come. I mean, don't forget that even Skyrim is a long way off on Quest right now. And until we're there with Quest, I really believe that PSVR serves a very compelling middle ground, more so than PC.
I also think, to go back to the point you made earlier, that if this happens in a way where PSVR 2 comes a bit down the line, and it works with games that you already have, that's huge, because you're not then having to invest in the fact that it's part of this kind of existing system, and that as VR probably gets more popular, more games will probably start to support VR modes as well, I reckon. And in that case, I think that's a huge kind of buy a Quest, have to also buy all the games, buy a PSVR 2, you already have a PS5, and, these games are kind of already compatible with it. To me, that feels like a really potent selling point for those who are looking to get into it, maybe.
I find it curious that there is an ongoing conversation in the comments of people are saying the Quest is actually the Wii of VR, and they're fighting back and forth over it.
Well, no, that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at.
I don't think the Quest is. I don't know.
Well,
I still
hold
think...
on though.
I'm saying
hold on though. That's
saying
interesting
it here and now.
because that's actually a good thing to say. It's a good thing to say that the Quest is the Wii of VR, because my parents, who have never owned, well, no, they had an Atari 2600. My dad did when I was born. Other than an Atari 2600, the Wii was the only other console I have ever seen people who are non-gamers purchase. And now some of them are wanting to buy a Quest. That's a huge win.
So that's but that's my point, right? Is that the Wii was this incredible phenomenon that reached out to entirely new audiences. There was still a very successful market out there for both the Xbox 360 and the PS3 at the time. They both went on to sell near 100 million units, if not over. And I think we're going to see that. I think, I don't think PSVR 2 is going to outsell whatever the Quest is doing. I think that has way too much momentum now. But I think you're going to see better, richer, more immersive experiences on PSVR 2. And for the enthusiasts and a significant market size, that is going to mean something. And that... Go for it.
No, I don't want to make this the Quest show, because this is everyone out there tuned in for the one show where we're going to focus on PlayStation VR, right? But like,
it's a good
having experienced multiplayer hand tracking within the last week, I continue to be blown away by what I saw, what I felt, and how expressive I felt in that moment. And it reinforces this impression that I'm getting more and more that Facebook's investment in the research divisions of its VR effort squashes what a lot of other efforts are doing. And we know Sony has a strong research division. We know Microsoft has a strong research division. We know Apple does a lot of research. They just don't release much of it. But I'm becoming less and less convinced that it's at the same scale that Facebook's doing. And I think over the next 5 years, those research things are going to make a bigger difference.
I disagree with you, Ian, and I'll tell you why. There were 100 iterations of Project Morpheus before it became the PSVR. I mean, there were so many iterations. Every time I would go and see them at a different show, they would say, "Oh no, this is the new one. This is the new one. This is," and I'm like, "What number are you up to?" 46, 59, 75. I can't guarantee it, but I suspect that Sony is doing as much R&D as FRL is, but specifically catering toward console style improvements, ruggedness, durability, drop it on your head and go type of stuff. So they're not going to have eye tracking. They're not going to have foveated rendering.
Have your 6-year-old chuck it across the room.
Well, I mean, they might have
foveated
rendering, but
so Sony is still a state-of-the-art consumer technology company. Yes, Facebook has probably more billions to spend on the research, but Sony has the infrastructure and support that Facebook is in many ways still building. And to Ian's point, I actually agree with him that in terms of like finding the ultimate form factor, yes, Facebook is the one that's going to get there first. But I'm talking about in the next 10 years and this particular product cycle, I don't think Facebook is going to make the kind of technological and software advancements that are going to completely dwarf PSVR 2. I don't think you're going to see anything on Quest with hand tracking. But this is we're talking about a gamer's headset at the end of the day. We're talking about something that could cost $500 at launch.
Yeah.
Go for it, Harry.
I was going to say, I think the thing is that, like, yes, you're right from our perspective that Facebook will probably put forward the headset that we go, wow, this is really pushing the boundaries. But for those 5 million people that bought PSVR headsets, which is presumably a lot larger than other headsets, I don't think people who are looking to invest in PSVR 2, like, they're not going to be aware or care if Facebook is miles ahead. Even though, yes, in the long run, it probably Facebook and other companies that kind of push it in the research department. But I don't think it matters to the people who are buying PSVR.
You didn't see Sony negotiate a deal.
Sorry, go ahead.
You didn't see Sony negotiate a deal with... Facebook negotiate a deal with Capcom to make Resident Evil 7 exclusive to PSVR. You didn't get that. Just now, you're getting stuff like they're getting the Medal of Honor game, right? And that's
And they're
that
buying
says
studios.
Something.
They're slowly building up that roster.
Yeah, so,
I mean,
so they're getting there, but Sony's been in this business for 2 decades now, like almost 2 decades.
That's kind of the point. Is you're playing 2 games versus 1 game, right? Sony is and always has been playing the console game, and Facebook is playing the VR game. And by focusing on VR first, that's, I think, going to give them advantages that are going to snowball faster than
for sure.
I think the rest of the market is going to compete with. And I'm trying to point this out, but like, it would be so amazing to hold onto the wheel of a car and then wave at the other person in the other car that's going by you, or throw a bomb out your window at them. You know, those types of things only happen with a really, really strong investment in hardware and software cooperation.
For the next 5 years at least on Quest, you're then going to look out the car and it's going to be like a bunch of really polygonal, ugly blocks. On PSVR 2, which is what we're talking about here. In the nearer term, you are going to have that higher quality experience, and for the next 10 years, that means something.
The only exception to that
is the Venn diagram of users is like small. Like you've got like, you know, PSVR and VR users, and the kind of overlap I feel like is like, you know, of like enthusiasts and PSVR/PSVR 2. I think it's a small overlap.
The only exception there, Jamie, is I still think we're probably 6 months away from a wireless version of the Oculus Link, and that I think is going to be a game changer like no one's really discussed. And if Sony is...
I disagree.
If we're a year and a half or 2 years away from a wireless PSVR 2,
I agree with Ian. I agree with Ian. Ian and I are on the same page. I think it is accelerating much faster.
PCs
right,
complex,
where's my
man.
button? Yeah.
People don't have gaming.
I think you're on something, Ian, and onto something, and I really think that's
and on something too, yeah.
And possibly, I wasn't going to suggest, but yes, there is a very good possibility that by Christmas time, a wireless link solution exists, and it'll be something that'll work for the second generation.
Little cousin Timmy doesn't have a gaming PC. He has a PS5.
Exactly. But I mean, the point is,
if you want Project Cars 3 on a Quest wirelessly, while holding onto a physical wheel and having your hands.
Little Timmy doesn't
that's
know
the type of thing we're starting to need and have. Is this all in one?
Well, little Timmy can go back and play with his Wii then. Screw little Timmy, okay?
Little Timmy's going to ask for a PS5
little
to do
Timmy
that. I don't
sounds
understand.
a little entitled.
I think little Timmy is the customer we're talking about here, and little Timmy doesn't care if it's Project Cars or Gran Turismo. Little Timmy
doesn't want to.
Little Timmy's going to mommy and saying, "Buy me whatever it is I want."
He is, and as far as he's concerned, little Timmy.
He doesn't want to buy. He doesn't want to buy, and we're talking about something that's been proven for decades now in the console market. He doesn't want to buy like 20 individual expensive pieces to make a PC, and then go that way. This is the accessible, easy option. This is the halfway house right now. I do not think Link getting wireless support it's a big deal for sure, and it's great, and I'm very much looking forward to it if it ever happens. It's not the same as a console with potentially wireless VR or wired VR or whatever it is. It's still nowhere near the same in terms of accessibility.
It isn't, but if there's a 2-year difference between them, it's a big deal at this point in the VR market, is all I'm saying.
Wireless,
I don't think the
PSVR
VR market...
Yeah, but that's
why not?
Maybe 2 years away, right?
I mean,
there's 2 years of iteration in the interactions in better controllers, better wireless, better interactions between using your hands with controllers, and all the interactions that are built around those combinations.
I just still don't think even in 2 years' time, I don't think in 2 years' time when PSVR 2 comes out, I still don't think enough people who would be the market for PSVR 2 are going to be like, well, I'm not going to buy PSVR 2 because it's taken 2 years and Facebook are doing better over there. If they were going to, they would already have a Facebook headset, and I don't think the markets... Again, I think it's a Venn diagram, and it's like little Timmy's over here and the PS5 owners, and there's VR enthusiasts, and there's a little overlap, and sure, those people might be, you know, with Facebook by then, 2 years down the track, but I don't think it's the same... I don't think it's the same person end of the day who's looking at
Okay. All right. Let's start to kind of finalize some of this. I'm going to start over here with Ian. Ian, prediction on price. Disc and
console?
Digital. Yes. Just the console.
What do we say? 400, 500?
So 400 for the digital, 500 for the disc.
Yeah, I think it'd be more aggressive than that. I hope they're more aggressive than that, but that's my gut, I guess.
How much is a PS4 now in America? I have no idea. I don't even know how much really it is in Australia.
So you can get one for like $250, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
right.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did it
All right.
launch at? It's like 400.
Like 400, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jamie, prediction on cost.
I think discless version 450, disc version 550. Within a year, the disc version will be less than 500.
Okay. What about you, Harry?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree with Jamie. 450 for disc, 550 for like the full thing. But I think that will come down not quickly, but within a year, as you said. I think that price will come down.
I'm gonna say the 400, 500, because I think that makes the most sense. I think it puts it into an affordable category. I saw a few people saying that the controllers are going to be expensive.
Yeah,
I'm guessing
that's been the trend, hasn't
it? $80 a piece starting out. They'll make their money on the accessories for the first 6 months of it being sold, and then slowly start to move the price down. I don't know. It's gonna be.
How many of those games we saw in the showcase were sort of couch co-op? There were a couple. I mean, Astrobot was one of them, wasn't it?
There was 3 or 4 at least.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
there
presumably.
are a couple. Yeah.
We don't know for sure.
I like how our opinions this episode are basically split halfway down the room. When me and Jamie are pretty much agreeing on everything, and it's you and Kyle. Even when it comes down to the price, it's split perfectly. We've got some people in the comments saying Rick P is saying $4.99 disc, $3.99 digital. I think it seems like it'll be somewhere around there. It's a matter of the specifics of where
a $3.99 digital version would be like really good PR for them. Again, like going back to what we said at the start, like I would still go disc version because you will make that money back very, very quickly with the difference between physical and digital. But
Little Timmy's mum doesn't know what the big deal is, and she just buys a digital version at Christmas for little Timmy.
She just wants an Oculus Quest with a $2,000 PC. Got the last word in.
Gerald McAllister said $4.99 digital, $5.99 disc. Controllers are going to add on a big cost. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's the highest prediction we've seen.
Well, and we didn't even touch on that, and honestly, they didn't really touch on it much either, except throwing down a controller into the sand and watching it vibrate. I mean, what's so special about the haptics? What's so special about the triggers? What's so special? I mean, I expected more. I guess I don't know. Maybe I wanted a more technical reveal, not just a giant hour-long commercial.
You have to look at the marketing they did. They called it the Future of Gaming Showcase. I felt like they were going to go strong in the games. I was actually surprised we even saw as much as we did. I didn't expect to see the box, to be honest with you. So
really,
I thought we were going to get the box and like a price and everything. I thought it was going to be like a mixture of. I thought it was going to be more. More.
If you look at how Xbox One did their thing last month with the terrible indie games showcase, that was like, why did you bother? They set the bar kind of low, and I feel like. I felt like they were going the Nintendo Direct approach of get people hyped with just the games. Also don't forget they have done a lot of the technical stuff in very, very long, meandering ways that have confused a lot of people over the past year. So,
at the end of the day, games sell consoles, right? Not consoles sell consoles.
That's what people are talking about right now.
I don't know. You guys talked about this at the beginning, but like, it was amazing to me that we saw Spider-Man is coming this year. Like,
no, I screamed.
Don't get me started. It was just
of all things,
that was a moment. That was
the best bit
in my life.
That's the
thing that's gonna sell me. But I still have these nightmares in my head of being in Walmart at midnight to get a game for PS3, and I'm like, wait, this game Warhawk doesn't come out for like 9 months. I thought it was a launch game, and like I was just that ill-informed back then about what the launch games were going to be, and I didn't see a lot of dates out there other than the Spider-Man game.
It is interesting because
you were going to buy a PS3 for Warhawk?
I was excited. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There was a lot of.
I did not. When it finally came out, I did not play it well. No, I admit it. Yes.
Okay, good.
But at the time, yeah. Okay.
There were a couple of games that said holiday 2020, a bit like it's the same window as the console, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're launching with the console. I think it's an interesting point because the console could come out. We don't really know what the launch titles look like right now because there was Spider-Man, there was the Gearbox one said holiday 2020. I don't know what else there was, but there was a few more.
Oh god, if Spider-Man's
Gerald's
out day
making.
one.
Gerald, obviously awesome. Gerald, always making good points in the comments.
Gerald.
Thank you. He said that he thinks it'll be a 1 terabyte minimum in size. Now I'm starting to wonder if the right question to ask is how many SKUs will there be at launch? Will there be a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, 2 controllers? I mean, who knows how many SKUs?
And as Gerald is pointing out as well, 1 terabyte drive isn't cheap right now for normal SSDs. And yeah, you've also got that new type of NVMe.
They did
SSD.
say. Did you cover that they did announce that it was minimum 825 gigabytes was like sort of the starting point. I didn't realize that.
That's a strange size.
Well, so that was.
It's 1 terabyte formatted a certain way.
In the previous round of stories, like a couple months ago, when they released the specs, they mentioned 825 gigabytes was the specification.
So it's a terabyte, as Carl said. Yeah, that's starting at a terabyte, basically. Interesting. Yeah, I do wonder if there'll be like a 2 terabyte version.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually. That's an interesting point.
Well, and the other thing was it's expandable, I think, right? There's an expansion slot on both of the new consoles, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I think I forgot about that. That's right, I think. Yeah,
I saw something
right
like
there.
that.
I forgot about that.
Right, because we had that
Honestly,
conversation.
I had not
you can't
thought about
upgrade, but you can add on in terms of more storage. Yeah.
That looks so much nicer on its side.
I'm excited about the front
USB.
No one responded to my joke. I love that it does look like Batman if you stand it up, even though it's reverse color. And Harry, there's your Batman.
No, I hate that.
Little Timmy likes it.
Little Timmy thinks that's the sickest thing in the world, and that's why it sells. Little Timmy is like, Mommy, get me the cool-looking white PlayStation, as opposed to the trash can of the Xbox One. Excuse the French. Excuse the French. I get excited talking about Xbox One trash cans.
Sorry, we're past swearing time in London and London alone.
Oh, it's after midnight for you, Jamie. Jeez.
Is it really?
I can see it. I can see it over there. I've got my London time over here.
Headset turned back into a pumpkin.
Oh, for God's sake.
Anyway, we should probably.
That's my quote. I made my 2 bad jokes. That's it. I'm done. All right. Well, speaking of showcases,
it's okay, Jamie. I'm proud of you.
Jamie, I feel like you probably were looking at this showcase with a different set of eyes, maybe critiquing the transitions or the edits. Any thoughts on why you might be doing that?
Well, that's a fantastic way to phrase it, because let me tell you, the presentation in that showcase compared to what you'll see next Tuesday at the Upload VR showcase, even summer edition, Sony should be embarrassed. They should hang their heads in shame and just throw in the towel to Facebook, because I will tell you now, look at the camera, which one? That one. The Upload VR Showcase Summer Edition will be the slickest, most impressive showcase of VR games that you will see on June 16th. Is that the right date?
Oh,
that is the
wrong date. We put the wrong date
wrong
there.
Date. Don't worry about it.
Right as you're saying it's going to be slick. Oh, man, Heaney.
Okay. we had to delay. That was the original date, but it's coming.
June 16th. 20 over 20 VR games featured in our new presentation. Got a lot of really cool stuff in there. One of the games leaked earlier this week, but don't worry about that. You'll see it. It's going to be great. Be there 9 a.m. PT.
Very slick.
We're going to be in here 8:30 a.m. PT, talking about the stuff to come, and all kinds of fun's going to happen.
My recommendation is to just get up in the morning and open up a browser and open up Upload VR and open up our YouTube page, like and subscribe and hit the little bell thing so you know when we go live, and then just camp. It's Upload VR Camp Day on Tuesday, June 16th.
That's a good way to put it.
As soon as you get up, just be our friends for the whole day. You're going to have a lot of fun, I think.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Any final thoughts, Ian?
Tune in on the correct date next week.
June 16th. Yeah.
I've seen. I know what some of these reveals are, and I'm extremely excited. Yeah, so not to believe in just Jamie's insulting words to Sony. I've been really impressed with some of these things. It's really cool.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yep.
Jamie, any other final thoughts other than the showcase on June 16th at 9 a.m. PT?
Play Paper Beast because it's a really good VR game.
Good call. All right, Harry. Other than blasting little Timmy, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I'm good. I'll that's nothing else. Shout out to little Timmy. That's about it.
All right, little Timmy.
PS5
we love you.
Little
We
Timmy.
love you. It's all just in good fun. Well, all right then. I guess let's wrap up this episode. Like we have said numerous times, watch the showcase and check out uploadvr.com for all your news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. Thank you all very much for watching. Thanks to the folks in the comments and everywhere else. We'll see you in the future. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Good to see you. Wave.